Hey, Baruch Levy B here from Soul Centered, and today we're talking politics. That's right, politics. I steer clear of politics. For almost 20 years, I was a pulpit rabbi, didn't touch politics with a 10-foot pole because there were congregants of people I led on both sides of the aisle, and now that I guide people all day, every day, my politics never enter into the conversation. It doesn't matter, it's irrelevant, because I listen to what others are grappling with and dealing with and help guide them. And one of the things I see right now in their lives is that politics is ripping them apart. It is tearing apart relationships between siblings, parents, and children, spouses. How many spouses do I counsel that are at each other's throats or worse because of this presidential cycle and election that's coming up here in just a few weeks? If this applies to you, if this applies to someone you know, then stick around because the stakes are high. It is important to vote. It is important to be a part of this political process, but it is equally as important to find what we call in Kabbalah shalom bayit, peace in your home. Because if you don't have peace in your home, in your relationships, and the most important areas of your life, then you have nothing, right? A house divided cannot stand. So let's bring some peace back to your home, to your relationships, and to your heart. I'm going to walk you through practical ways to do that, but I just want to share with you because for me, this is close to home, and I want to share with you my experience. When I was, 6 or 8 years old, I was at my grandmother's house, and I was innocently drawing in the room, while next door, in the room next door, my dad, my uncle, and my grandparents were having a debate. I found out later it was about, I think, Reagan and Carter and that presidential cycle in 1980. But all I knew is it went from a conversation to a debate to screaming. And I remember just feeling scared in the other room, screaming. And then all of a sudden, a big crash and shatter. And my uncle was gone, and my dad was furious, and there was glass on the ground, and the door to the outside, the garage, came unhinged. And I'll just never forget that. It was traumatic to a little kid in the other room. And I also remember my father and my uncle didn't speak for, I don't know if it was months or years, but it was a very long time. And I thought, how could politics divide like that? How can two brothers end up parting ways? I'm no better than anybody. I ended up doing this with my own father before he died, and it's one of the biggest regrets of my life that he and I had it out. Not over politics, over religion, but really the same outcome. We ended up getting into a fight and just coming short of fisticuffs, and I am not proud of that. But before it did, I kicked him out of my car and drove away because we were just absolutely out of our minds with anger over religion. And ultimately, we didn't speak for over 9 months at the time. And I look back on that with such deep pain and regret because now he's dead. And I can't have that back. And I violated something profound, a commandment, honor your father, and I didn't. And I live with that. That's mine to carry. Don't you do this. Don't you carry that. It's not needed. It's not necessary. Here are some ways to help you avoid that kind of regret and to live with truth by voting for whom you need to vote for, but doing it in a way that brings peace and wholeness to the world, to the election, and to your relationships, to your heart. So number one, ask yourself this: when you're in a heated debate with your spouse, with your friend, with your parent, do you want to be right or do you want to be in love? I'll say it again. Well, Wayne Dyer taught me this. Do you want to be right or do you want to be in love? Sometimes you can't have both. Now you may say, I want to be right. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe you do. And there are times when it's important to be right and sacrifice everything. But those times are few and far between. Those times are absolutes. And if we make absolutes over every issue, then ultimately nothing's really an absolute, right? It's like people who say, I have multiple number one values and priorities, and they're competing. Well, then you don't, because you're going to choose one of them. Choose your absolutes and make your stand. But if it is not an absolute, then ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to be in love? Because you can't always have both. And I would argue that more often than not, you want to be in love. You don't need to be right. Number two, right? Is it worth it? I mean, I guess this is a variation of number one. Number two, is it worth it? Right? Are the stakes that high that I am going to stake my claim on this issue? Is it worth it to know that my loved one could walk out that door because of the consequences of this? Is it worth it to continue down this path? Or should we just take a pause, right? Should we take a break and come back to it? Because more often than not, when you take that pause, you've had this experience, you have little kids, you give them a timeout, they come back. I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to do that. Anger is intoxicating. In fact, in the Kabbalistic tradition, it's a form of idolatry when you do something out of anger because it's no longer you. You're no longer driving the bus. It's a version of you, and not the highest version of you. Is it worth it? Number 3, Elie Wiesel taught me this one. The opposite of love is not anger, it's indifference. When you are heated in an argument, right, just appreciate for the moment the person's feelings across from you. That they feel this deeply and this passionately isn't a bad thing. Even if you don't agree with them, even if you don't like how it's being presented, take a step back and realize they're not indifferent. And you're not indifferent if you're being drawn into it. And that lack of indifference is a form of love. Now we got to harness it. We got to channel it. We got to redirect it. Because again, back to 1 and 2, it can destroy you. But start there. It's not indifference. It's not all bad. It's energy. And energy just needs to be harnessed and redirected for the good. Number 4, soulmates has unfortunately and often been misunderstood and misinterpreted as kumbaya. Right? My soul, and you can have multiple soulmates. It's not just your spouse or your lover. And your parent is a soulmate, your child is a soulmate, a friend can be a soulmate. People you've traveled through many lifetimes with, certainly that you're traveling through this lifetime, regardless of what you believe about past lives or future lives, and that it's more than just some ordinary relationship, it's extraordinary. Soulmates, however, aren't just the fun stuff, the good stuff, the nurturing stuff, it's part of it. In the Bible, it says that Adam was lonely and the divine made for him an Ezer Kenegdo. Translated as helpmate, which I don't really know what that means, but Ezer means to nurture, and Kenegdo means to challenge. When you are in the debate that leads to an argument, just remember this, that maybe that person is in your life, not to change your mind, not to get you to vote a different way, but to challenge you, to help you figure out your why behind the what and the how of your beliefs. It isn't to say that just because you're not getting along doesn't mean they're not your soulmate. I've counseled many people who said, well, maybe this person isn't my soulmate because he's voting for Biden and I'm voting for Trump, or vice versa. It doesn't mean that's not your soulmate. It means that maybe, in fact, that is your soulmate. And they're here to challenge you as much as nurturing. You find you'll say, can I have a little more nurturing, a little less challenging? I don't know. That's a nuance, and I'll help you figure that one out. But don't write that person off as anything other than your soulmate just because they don't vote how you vote and believe what you believe. Number 5, Martin Buber. Martin Buber taught us about I, it, and I, thou. I, it is a way of relating to people or things in our lives that we don't see them. We objectify them. We are reductionistic, reducing them into a thing, into a something to be battered and battering ram and, used. And this is a person. This is a spirit. This is a soul. Again, they may not believe what I'm believing, and maybe you think they need to be educated. So educate them, but see them, see their thou-ness, right? The divinity within them, and educate that. Speak to that. Respond to that. If we start turning people into others, into numbers, well, that has never worked out well in humanity. When you reduce somebody to a number, to an opinion, to an ideology, to a thing, no matter what comes of it, it's never good. I, it, or I, thou. Because when it's an I, thou, you will relate differently to them. Shades of gray. Right now there is such absolutist mentality. Right and wrong, good or bad. There are good people on both sides of the aisle making good points. You cannot tell me that if you're voting for Biden, that somebody in the Trump camp doesn't have pieces of the truth, that they're all liars, that it's all built on fear, and vice versa. You can't tell me that, Biden's policies and those who follow Biden are hysterical, emotional, they're not rational. I hear these absolutes and I think nothing in life, my mother taught me this, nothing in life is black and white. Everything is shades of gray. There are moments of moral clarity. Back to one of our first points, there are moments to draw an absolute line in the sand and say, this is right and this is wrong and there is no middle ground. But we've got to choose those moments, few and far between, and we got to choose them wisely and selectively and be honest about them. The people you know that are voting for the candidate that you are not are good people. And that takes us into the final point. One of the final points. We'll make it the final point. The final point is my teacher, Dr. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor. And if he can say this, we can say this. He said there are only two races, right? The decent and the indecent. There are only two races of human beings. It isn't about your religion, your skin color, your political ideologies. Are you a good person? Is the person across from you a good person? Maybe they're misguided. Maybe they're voting for the wrong person in your opinion. Maybe they need an education. See them as an I, thou. See them as a spirit and ask yourself, are they decent? Don't get stuck in all of this hyperbole in this drama. Right? That, Hitler and Trump are the same. They're not. It's a disgrace to say that Trump is Hitler. It's a disgrace to say that Biden is a socialist. These are absolutist statements. Hitler sent 6 million Jews to the gas chambers. Right? Marxism and communism is responsible for more murder than any other ideology. It is a disgrace to paint individuals in our society with such broad, devastating strokes, and it's a disgrace for you to paint the person across from you, whom you know, whom you love, to paint them with such a broad brush and broad strokes. And lastly, this will be the last one, forgiveness, right? It's been said, love is forgiving. Forgiving, give your love, forgive the person, even if they're wrong in your opinion. Forgive them. That's when forgiveness means the most, right? Not just forgiving the people that do nice things to you and make a mistake once in a while, but for somebody who violates your opinion, your belief system, right? Forgive them. This is your spouse. This is your child. This is your parent. Don't let 9 months go by before you talk to them again. They will be dead soon enough. There will come a point when you can't have them back. Don't make the mistake I did of wasting that time, of walking out that door. Forgive them now. So they're going to vote for the person you don't like. They're here. They're alive. You're alive. It is more important because on November 4th, God willing, they'll still be in your life. And in 4 years, one of these two presidents will be done. And there will be another one and another one after that. Politics isn't worth it. Religion isn't worth it. Ideologies aren't worth it. Sexual orientation isn't worth it. I don't care what the thing that is dividing you, right? Shalom bait, peace in the home above all else. It trumps, probably not the best word to use, it trumps all. Open your hearts. Right? Yes, go vote. Yes, stand your ground. Yes, speak your truth and live your truth, but do it gently. Do it compassionately. Do it inclusively. Do it in a way that makes room for thou, because there are many thous in your life that you need in your life to continue on long after this election and this president is long gone. You can learn more and connect with me at mysoulcentered.org. If you are going through a very difficult time because of these elections, you're not alone, and I can help guide you. My wife Ariella can help guide you. So please reach out to us, mysoulcentered.org. Take care. Shalom. Namaste. Salam. Peace.